Katy Perry is still one of the most famous people in America. She just hasn't been a pop star in about 10 years. If you spent any time near a radio between 2010 and 2014 in a grocery store or a car or somebody else's wedding, you know every word of at least one of her songs, and you never once decided to learn it. 5 of them, off one album called Teenage Dream, went to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Before her, one person had ever done that. Michael Jackson with Bad, and it had stood untouched for 23 years. George Michael got 4 and stopped. Janet Jackson got 4. Usher got 4. Katy Perry got 5. The last night she was the biggest thing in the country was February 1st, 2015 in Glendale, Arizona. 118.5 million people watched her play the Super Bowl halftime show, according to Nielsen, the most that have ever watched one. 3 weeks later, she was smaller than she'd been the day before it, and she has never been that big again. Since then, she has flown to space, and she is dating the former Prime Minister of Canada. Both of those got the whole country to look at her. Neither left anything behind. So here is where that lands. In July of 2024, she released the first single from a new album called Woman's World. It entered the Hot 100 at number 63, and that turned out to be as high as it ever got. It came in at its ceiling and went down. The album arrived in September of 2024. It's called 143. It opened at number 6 with about 48,000 units. And a unit is Billboard's way of adding copies sold together with how much people streamed it. Of those 48,000, roughly 37,500 were physical copies. Streaming accounted for 10,000, which works out to a little over 13 million plays in a week. And those physical copies moved across 8 different vinyl versions, 4 different CD versions, a cassette. So about 4/5 of her opening week was people buying objects, not people listening. Billboard also puts out year-end lists of the 100 biggest artists and the 100 biggest songs. In 2025, she was on neither one, either, and she has kept going since. There's a single called Band-Aids from November of 2025, and one called Watch It Burn from June of 2026, which is good, and which she says is the first time in her life she let herself be angry. Now, I should say there have been some good signs. She toured the world in 2025, 91 shows, and her management told Billboard it moved over 1 million tickets and made $134 million, which is a real number, and I'm not going to pretend it isn't. But her Prismatic tour had already made $146 million by January of 2015, with more people through the door, and that was before it had even finished. Fewer dollars, fewer seats, 11 years apart, and that's before you count what a dollar was worth back then. So in this video, I want to talk about Katy Perry while highlighting what I believe to be 5 of the biggest reasons behind her decline. Starting out with the most obvious reason, everybody here is thinking it, the producers. Before any of this, she was Katie Hudson. She made a gospel record in 2001 that nobody bought, and then spent years getting signed and dropped and signed again. By every account I have read, she was relentless about it, and I think that deserves more credit than it usually gets. She finally broke through with I Kissed a Girl, which went to #1 in July of 2008. Then came Teenage Dream. And I would have to say the biggest, most promising time for Katy Perry was the years leading up to 2011. Here's the thing about those songs though. California Girls was made with Max Martin, Dr. Luke, and Benny Blanco. Last Friday Night was Dr. Luke and Max Martin again. Max Martin is, depending on how you count it, the most successful pop producer who has ever lived. and Dr. Luke was the closest thing he had to a protege, which is to say, a student who learned the trade from him. Obviously, she was the one singing it, and she has writing credits across that record, and I am not trying to take that away from her at all. But those 5 number ones were built by 2 men who did not work for her. They worked for whoever booked them next. And the 5th one wasn't exactly organic either. Capitol's head of promotion at the time told Billboard in 2021 that they put out a remix of Last Friday Night specifically because they knew her fans would want both versions, so it would boost her numbers and push the song over the hump. It worked. On the chart dated August 27th, 2011, Last Friday Night reached number 1, and Teenage Dream tied bad. And tying Michael Jackson is the sort of thing that gets you the Super Bowl. Which brings me to the second reason, the Super Bowl. And she wasn't finished after Teenage Dream either. Prism came out in 2013 and went straight to number 1 with 286,000 copies sold in a week, and Dark Horse off that record spent 57 weeks on the Hot 100, which only 22 songs in the chart's history have ever managed. So when the Super Bowl called, she wasn't a nostalgia booking. She was arguably the biggest working pop star in the country, so she got the Super Bowl. 13 minutes, Missy Elliott, Lenny Kravitz, a giant mechanical lion, in front of more people than had ever watched one. And I want to be careful here because it would be easy to tell this like nothing came of it. And something did. Billboard has a chart called the Artist 100, which measures everything at once, sales and streams and radio and social media together. The week after the Super Bowl, she jumped from number 20 to number 12. The week after that, she was in the top 10, which was the highest she had ever been on that chart, with her song downloads up 106% and her streaming up 63%. So it converted. It converted immediately, and it converted hard. 3 weeks later, it was gone. There's data from Google on how often Americans typed her name into a search bar, and the way you read it is that everything gets measured against her biggest month ever, which is this one, February 2015, so call that 100. The week of the Super Bowl, 100. 1 week later, 25. 2 weeks later, 11. 3 weeks later, 9. She went in at about a 10. She came out at an 8. And the Super Bowl was close to the end of that album's run anyway. Billboard was writing at the time that she was playing out the string on Prism. The tour wrapped up in Europe on March 22nd, 2015, and after that, there was nothing on the calendar at all. The third reason is a short one, and I am telling you that now, so you do not think I have skipped over something. I am calling it the quiet year. 2016, no album, no tour, nothing much at all. And across those 12 months, her search interest fell about 45%, from an average of 27 down to 15, measured against that February 2015 100. That's the year it dropped, and it never came back up. She has not been above 15 once in the 10 years since. So when Witness came out on June 9th, 2017, she had already been down there for 18 months. The fourth reason is the one I have the hardest time looking away from. I am going to call it a bot number 1. And at first, it worked. It went straight in at number 1 on the Billboard 200 with 180,000 units. She also climbed from number 44 to number 1 on that same Artist 100 chart, the first time in her life she had ever been the biggest musical act in the country by that measure. Billboard pointed out it had taken her 149 weeks, a record for the slowest climb to the top. So that is the biggest week of her career, June of 2017. But look at what is inside the 180,000. About 162,000 of it was physical copies. And a good chunk of those moved because of a deal where buying a ticket to the tour got you the album thrown in with it, which I really do think is fair enough. Everybody was doing it. It was completely normal and above board, and I would probably have done the same. But it does mean that in an era when the top of the album chart was being decided by hundreds of millions of streams, Katy Perry got to number 1 by selling plastic to people who had already bought a ticket to come see her. She took the judging job on American Idol in March of 2018, which is good work. She was reportedly paid very well for it, and she stayed 6 years. And then on February 28th, 2019, Billboard ran a piece headlined Katy Perry's Muted Chart Return, with a subheading asking what her new single said about her current place in pop. The single was called 365, and it was a collaboration with Zedd, who had just had one of the biggest songs in the world with The Middle. This was a real attempt, with a producer having the best year of his life and an expensive science fiction video. It debuted at number 86. That's 20 months. The biggest week of her career, the one it took her a record 149 weeks to climb to, bought her 20 months before the trade press started writing about her in the past tense. Leading me right into the final reason, and I'm just going to call it Nothing Stuck. On April 14th, 2025, she got into a Blue Origin rocket and went to space for 11 minutes, and the whole country looked. On that same scale, the week of that flight is also 100. 6 weeks later, 8. Same shape, 10 years apart. We have been seeing this throughout the video. Every time she got everybody to look, they looked, and then they stopped, and nothing changed. Billboard publishes a year-end list of the 200 albums Americans listen to most. In 2024, the year 143 came out, exactly one Katy Perry album made it. Teenage Dream, number 111. In 2025, the year she spent touring the world, behind 143, exactly one Katy Perry album made it. Teenage Dream, number 119, and it is still going on. To promote Watch It Burn, she posted a video of herself hopping around a bus lot, and partway through, the former Prime Minister of Canada hops into frame behind her. He is her boyfriend. Billboard opened its write-up by pointing out that most pop stars do not get politicians endorsing their songs, which is true. And I would say that is the whole thing in one clip. The most interesting fact about that song is who was dancing to it. She made one record that stuck in 2010 with a lot of help, and she has been living off it ever since. So a lot of it has been her fault, and a lot of it has been beyond her control. Max Martin was never hers to keep, but 15 years is a long time to not make another record people keep. I really think Katy Perry would benefit from making something small. Not a rocket, not a stadium, not a former head of government hopping around behind her. A record that 50,000 people love completely. I keep coming back to that first number. 5 songs, 1 album, a 23-year record tied. And I wonder whether the size of it is the problem. Whether you can build something so big at 26 that everything after it is a grocery store playing your song. Plenty of people would take that trade. Or maybe not. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. What do you think about Katy Perry? 1. Is this a story about somebody who lost it, or a story about somebody who never quite had it in the first place? I go back and forth on that. 2. Teenage Dream at 111, and then 119, 15 years on. Is that a failure? Or is that the thing most musicians would trade a career for? And do you agree with my list? As always, it is not a complete list, so let me know if something should be added or subtracted. 3. What's your Katy Perry song? Everybody has one, whether they wanted one or not. 4. Anything else at all?